In the center of Tokyo, there is a mansion that was built. Inside, many servants take care of all the household affairs. And in this luxurious family, there are 7 beautiful brothers and sisters with the surname Shiunji. The eldest brother of the family is Arata. Although he nearly has everything, Arata still faces many difficulties in love, to the point that he even has to ask his younger brother of the family. His name is Shiun, however. Shiun cannot help Arata because everything lies within Arata himself. It turns out he only believes in destiny, and Arata is still searching for the girl of his life. At this moment, the 5 sisters of the Shunji family appear. Each of them has a distinct personality. However, conflicts always occur among them. And Uka is always the sister who starts quarrels with Arata. It seems that the Shunji family's bond has some issues. At this time, Uka suddenly remembers. This Saturday, the whole family will go on a private trip, because Kautano's birthday is coming soon. She is the youngest sister in the family, so everyone agrees to go together. Unexpectedly, the 5 Shianji sisters are very popular. They even have their own fans. Everyone around admires Arata and Shion because both of them live together with the 5 Shianji sisters. However, for Arata, it is not enjoyable at all, since his parents always take the sisters' side. Even Shion, when he was little, was often bullied by them. But as they all live under the same roof with such beauties, outsiders think that they are a loving family. However, the truth is painfully far from reality. Each sister has a unique personality unlike anyone else. The eldest sister of the family is named Banri. She is a first-year student at a prestigious university. Because Banri has a gentle and friendly nature, she is always loved by everyone. The second sister is named Seiha. She is an excellent student, since Seiha's grades are always at the top of the entire school. However, she has a cold personality. Yet her appearance is no less graceful. Therefore, Seiha is even more adored by her passionate fans. Okay is the third sister in the family. Her strength lies in sports. Okay is even always the top candidate for the position of student council president. And Minami is the 4th sister. She is a tennis prodigy. With Minami's handsome looks, she is loved by many other girls. Finally, the youngest of the family is Kotono. Although she has a small figure and a shy personality, Kotono surprisingly has many fans. Because Urata has always lived in an environment that everyone envies, he gradually became mentally hurt. Therefore, Urata is now very shy around girls. However, he has never accepted this embarrassing truth. When he is at home, Arata is still deep in thought in his room. Suddenly, Oka walks in, because she wants to study together with Arata. But Oka's outfit is far too revealing, making it impossible for Arata to concentrate. At this moment, Oka remembers that Arata already has someone he likes, because Shin had told her about it earlier. This makes Arata feel embarrassed by the sudden situation, but he slowly opens up afterward. It turns out the person Arata cares about is Yokoyama. Oka is surprised because she also knows that person, so Oka plans to find a way to help the two of them. Unexpectedly, Arata flatly refuses. It turns out he already has his own plan. Many days later, everyone gathers together to celebrate Kotono's birthday. However, Oka and Minami are having an argument because Minami lost something that belonged to Oka. But Minami doesn't care about it at all. This makes Oka furious. At this moment, Arata shows his role as the eldest brother. He successfully stops them. Right then, their father arrives. His name is Konami. After that, everyone begins the party. However, Konami has something to say. Unexpectedly, the 7 Shiunji siblings are not real siblings. None of them are blood-related, except for the twins Minami and Shion. This instantly shocks everyone, faced with this overwhelming news, but Konami understands they will surely be confused, so he will answer all of their questions, and Konami hopes they will soon accept this truth. Then, the party officially begins. However, the expressions of the 7 Shiunji siblings are emotionless. That silence is terrifying. After it ends, everyone finally has a chance to talk to each other. Uka cannot understand the reason why Konami revealed such a huge secret at this very moment. But Seiya, on the contrary, believes that this is the right time, because this matter cannot be delayed forever. However, deep inside Uka's heart, she still feels unhappy. After she just learned this truth, Uka probably cannot accept it so easily. As for Banri, she no longer remembers the things from childhood, but everyone has lived together for nearly 15 years. Even though now the 7 Shiunji siblings are not blood-related, they will still always be a family. However, Arata keeps thinking about this matter. He truly cannot bear the terrible day he just experienced. So afterward, Arata decides to take a bath. Unexpectedly, Kutono is also there. This makes both of them panic. Arata quickly rushes straight outside, Suddenly, Kutono hugs him from behind. At that moment, Kutono is not wearing anything. This makes Arata extremely flustered. He keeps begging Kutono to stop. However, Kutono does not care. The reason is because she truly likes Arata. Kutono even sheds tears when she is rejected by Arata for this kind of affection. However, Arata clearly explains to Kutono. Perhaps she has mistaken her feelings. At Kutono's current age of adolescence, it is easy to confuse emotions with affection for family members. And Arata himself understands this very well. Blood ties do not matter, but Arata is still Kotono's older brother. Surely he will always wish for Kotono's happiness. Therefore, Arata will act as if nothing ever happened. It is best for Kotono to calm down and reflect on the actions she just did. When Arata returns to his room unexpectedly, Seiya is also there. It turns out she has been waiting for Arata. Suddenly, Seiya slowly pushes Arata backward, and then she sits on top of him. No matter how extremely flustered Arata becomes, Seiya still remains on top of him. The feelings Arata has at this moment are hard to describe, and then Seiya learns the earlier secret. She accidentally discovered Arata and Kotono together in the bathroom, because when Seiya was about to enter the bathroom, she happened to see their situation. It turns out Seiya had vaguely noticed Kotono's feelings, and after today's incident, perhaps Kotono will no longer be able to hold back. However, Seiya is also very pleased. With Arata's mature response, he firmly rejected Kotono. That very decision eases Seiya's worries somewhat, and what Seiya just did to Arata a moment ago. It turns out she was only testing Arata's heart. But for Arata, this matter is truly ridiculous, because he only sees Kotono as a normal younger sister, and Arata has never had any other thoughts about Kotono. But Seiya thinks that now things are different. Since none of them share the same bloodline, anything could unexpectedly happen. Even Seiya and Arata are not exceptions. When Arata is alone in his room, he continues thinking about this troublesome situation. The next morning, before Arata goes to school, he accidentally sees Kotono and Banri. At that moment, Banri tries to cheer everyone up, after they learned the truth from the day before. However, Banri gets a bit too excited, which makes Arata seem tired. He is no longer as natural as he used to be. When the Shiunji sisters go outside, they always attract the attention of people around them, because of their outstanding appearances. Some people even see it as an honor, just to have the chance to see such beautiful girls. As for Shiyun, he cannot imagine at all. If the shocking secret of the Shiunji family were revealed, what people's reactions would be like. Arata doesn't even dare to think about it, although everyone now seems normal. In their hearts, they are surely in turmoil. Even Arata himself still has many thoughts. Today, he cannot focus on studying, because Arata keeps thinking about his previous troubles. Suddenly, Minami appears in front of Arata, because she is having some problems with her studies. However, Minami is an extremely energetic girl. She always brings a cheerful atmosphere to everyone. Minami even has many fans among other girls. But her academic performance has been very poor recently, so Arata decides to tutor Minami. However, the situation does not improve much. Arata even feels helpless with Minami's learning ability, because she cannot fully concentrate on studying. Minami is always drawn to fun things. That is why she hardly worries about anything. Suddenly, on their way home, Arata spots Yokoyama walking with another boy. This makes Arata think a lot about it, even though he is walking together with Minami. After that, Arata becomes curious about Minami's feelings regarding the family, but she remains very calm. The only thing Minami truly cares about is her biological parents. Minami even worries about Kotono, because Kotono is the youngest in the family. Minami fears she will have a hard time dealing with this matter. Since Kotono's personality is rather introverted, unexpectedly Arata is very surprised by Minami's mature way of thinking. She comforts Arata because Minami has noticed. The person Arata likes was walking with someone else earlier, and everything was revealed by Oka. This makes Arata furious at that moment. The next day, after Arata observes many times, it seems Kotono is avoiding him more and more. So Arata secretly understands that Kotono has realized the truth. Suddenly Seiya appears out of nowhere, which immediately startles Arata, and Minami also follows behind. This gives Arata a bad feeling about today. When he is at school, Arata watches Yokoyama from a distance. But Oka discovers this. After asking him a few questions, Oka says that Arata is truly pathetic, because he cannot even speak to Yokoyama. Regarding this, Arata actually admires Oka a lot because she was always surrounded by people. Even Oka was always the center of attention. Suddenly, Oka's friends turned their attention to Arata, but she immediately stopped that from happening, simply because Oka didn't want it that way. The next day, the Shiunji family went to an amusement park. It turned out to be for Kotono's birthday. After a while, everyone disappeared. Only Urata and Banri were left. Although Urata tried to contact everyone, no one answered the phone, so Banri decided the two of them would just have fun together. She then suddenly acted very close to Urata. Although Urata felt it was normal, after a while he started to feel uneasy. Because Banri kept touching Urata, he gradually became uncomfortable. It turned out Banri was doing it on purpose, to make Urata blush with embarrassment, and Banri actually succeeded in doing so. At that moment, Urata felt extremely restless inside, to the point he couldn't even walk properly. Quite a long time had passed, but everyone was still separated. Even though Urata kept trying to contact them, it seemed there was still no result. At that moment, Urata asked Banri about her feelings regarding what happened the day before. However, she was quite calm. Banri couldn't stay sad forever. Suddenly, she remembered things from her childhood. Whenever Urata was teased by others, he would always run to Banri and cry loudly. That was indeed the case. Since Banri became aware of her position in the family, she had always tried to protect the other members. Because the responsibility of being the eldest sister wasn't easy for Banri. But she still did her best every single day. Suddenly, a little girl accidentally spilled water on Banri. Unexpectedly, Urata blocked it with his own body, which greatly surprised Banri. After that, Urata also affirmed that he too would protect everyone, even Banri herself, because Urata was also her younger brother. From those words of Urata, Banri was surprised by his mature way of thinking. After that, everyone finally reunited. They enjoyed their time together. When night fell, Seiya suddenly revealed to everyone. She had seen Kutono hugging Urata in the bathroom. Minami was certain this was very dangerous. However, Seiya was certain that everything was still fine. She believed Urata definitely didn't have any other thoughts. He had handled it properly, just like an older brother would. As for Kotono, it might have just been an impulsive thought. That was why she acted that way. Therefore, Sei had tried to find a way together with everyone, to resolve the matter peacefully. But for now, they all decided to keep it a secret, because if Kotono found out, she would only become more confused. After that, everyone went home together. On the way, Urata secretly observed Kotono. Fortunately, she was acting normal. So Urata felt somewhat relieved. When they were at school, Shun was now testing Urata, to see if Urata truly regarded the Shunji, sisters, as ordinary girls or not. However, for Urata, everyone was still family, so he was certain he wouldn't have any inappropriate thoughts. The next morning, while Urata was exercising, Minami appeared at that time as well. That made Urata feel excited, because it was the first time Minami had ever come to exercise so early. But Urata's emotions seemed a little over the top, so Minami felt a bit uncomfortable, because Urata had the habit of training since childhood. Whenever he skipped a day without exercise, Urata would feel very uneasy. At that moment, Minami had something she wanted to ask Urata. However, she didn't know where to start. But Minami truly wanted to know clearly about the relationship between Oka and Urata, since Minami often saw them talking together. After that, Minami left while she still hadn't learned anything, and that made Minami feel extremely frustrated. As for Urata, he was wondering why Minami had asked him such a question. Suddenly, when Urata went to the bathroom, he ran into Seiya there as well, so Urata panicked and ran out. Although Seiya saw that, she still continued undressing. It seemed that Seiya didn't care at all. When Urata returned to his room, Banri appeared at that moment. She was surprised by how clean Urata's room was, because when he was younger, Urata was often scolded by his father, since he frequently dropped food outside the room. But Urata had already grown up, so he had become more conscious about this. Returning to the present, the reason Banri came to Urata's room was quite sensitive. She wanted to see what a room filled with a man's scent was like. However, Banri was disappointed, even though Urata was already a grown young man. At that moment, Banri accidentally saw Urata's computer, but the content inside wasn't anything decent, which made Urata panic and snatch the computer back. After that, Banri wanted to go on a date together, so she took Urata to a phone shop, because Banri still remembered that Urata had wanted to get a new phone. However, Banri once again started touching Urata, which made him unable to endure it. Banri's strange behavior lately made Urata extremely suspicious. After that, he quickly chose a phone for himself. Unexpectedly, Banri was surprised about that. To her, a phone and a lover were very similar. Both were indispensable, and one had to carefully choose the one that truly fit. When the store clerk processed the payment, she mentioned that if they were lovers, they The two of them would get a discount on the phone, so Banri didn't hesitate to move closer to Arata. She took the initiative to pretend they were lovers. But Arata felt extremely embarrassed about it, and he couldn't keep pretending. Because Arata was afraid that if others found out, both he and Banri would get into trouble. On the way, Banri saw an ice cream shop, so she quickly ran over there. Although Banri usually seemed very mature, Arata sometimes saw her being innocent like this. Suddenly, Banri recalled memories from their childhood. Back then, everyone often fought over ice cream, and the one who always got her ice cream stolen was Kotono. Because of her timid personality, every time that happened to Kotono, she would usually hide inside the closet. As for Arata, he still remembered. Since childhood, Banri had always been afraid of ghosts. Even now, when Arata brought it up, it was enough to make Banri's hands and legs go weak. Indeed, no matter what, they would always remain a family. Those memories were treasures for Banri. Suddenly, Banri asked Arata about his situation, whether he was having any troubles or not. Luckily, Arata had no problems because he had trained that habit since long ago. After that, Banri sent a photo of the two of them hanging out to the family group chat. Kotono happened to see it. She suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. As for Banri, because she suddenly had urgent business, Banri had to leave first. It turned out Minami had called her to ask about Arata's situation, and everything about Arata was still fine. Banri didn't notice anything unusual about him. On another day, the whole family was sitting together for a meal. By chance, Arata noticed. Lately, Seiya always had a serious expression. However, she seemed a bit strange. So Arata took the initiative to approach Seiya. It turned out he wanted to find out what exactly was troubling Seiya in her life. Suddenly, she came up with a plan in her head. The two of them would have to play a game arranged by Seiya. At that moment, Seiya revealed when she first stepped into Arata's room. She honestly felt a little excited. Those words of hers confused Arata. But if their relationship went beyond being siblings, then Seiya would definitely run into trouble. She didn't want to keep avoiding it like that. So Seiya was determined to make everything clear. That was why she was taking part in this game. Part of it was so Seiya could find her answer through the result. Suddenly, she slowly moved closer, which immediately made Arata flustered. More and more, the two of them ended up in awkwardly intimate positions. In such risky situations, Arata's face grew redder and redder from embarrassment. After that, Seiya decided to end the game. Because Arata refused to cooperate and play along, Seiya was left without any clear answer for herself. Therefore, she couldn't draw any conclusion. And then Seiya immediately left, leaving Arata sitting there alone. Unexpectedly, Uka appeared behind him at that moment. It turned out Uka wanted to invite Arata to play a game together. But Arata was very confused, because ever since Uka learned the truth about the Shiyunji family, she had completely changed her interests. Since childhood, Uka never liked games like these, but now she was addicted to them without realizing it. Unexpectedly, Oka's skills were no joke either. She defeated Arata with ease. Even though Oka was that obsessed with gaming, she still had excellent results at school, which made Arata admire Oka greatly. Before her extraordinary determination, Oka was even admired by many pursuers in class. She truly was the type of girl who had both talent and beauty. Whenever Oka won, her expressions were extremely adorable. Unexpectedly, the winner this time was Arata. Of course, Oka couldn't stand the feeling of losing, so she immediately looked for a chance to get revenge on Arata, although it was nothing to Arata. Because of the physical contact in many sensitive spots, Arata gradually began to feel flustered. Suddenly, he tried to stop it. But unexpectedly, things only became more troublesome, because Arata ended up pinning Seiya directly under him, which made both of them freeze instantly. Even Seiya couldn't say anything, and then she shyly walked away at once. The Shiyunji family members returned to their usual daily life. However, their father was still worried, because of what the 7 siblings had gone through over the past few days. But to Arata, everyone seemed normal, while they were all focusing on watching a movie on TV. Unexpectedly, Banri was very excited when she saw the scene where the male lead was about to confess. However, Oka didn't seem interested in it at all. So at that moment, a small argument broke out among them. Suddenly, Kotono unexpectedly confessed. She openly admitted in front of her sisters that she truly liked Arata. Kotono even said she wanted to marry Arata as her husband. Ever since she learned about their true blood relationship, everyone froze in shock, faced with Kotono's unusual desire. As for Arata and his father, Konami suddenly wanted Arata to get a girlfriend. But for Arata, that was impossible, because he didn't even dare to talk to the girl he liked. But Konami thought no one was strong enough to escape falling in love, although Konami first married his wife only because she was beautiful. Over time, it was a person's character that truly mattered. However, for Arata, things were not so simple. Even so, Arata was determined to make the people around him happy. And then Arata asked Konami for permission to leave. The next morning came, but everyone was still troubled, as they kept thinking about what had happened the previous day, when Kodono was honest with her own feelings. However, it was still difficult for them to accept, because it was such a shocking matter. That day, Minami planned to arrive at school early. However, she was caught by Arata, but Minami's face looked a little flustered. That made Arata think something bad had happened. Even so, Minami immediately walked away. She still did not dare to reveal this truth to Arata. At school, since Minami was preparing for the competition, she tried harder than usual to stay focused. Even others could notice it. However, Minami was distracted by many things. Luckily, she still had companions by her side, so Minami felt a little relieved. At this moment, she met her senior. That senior was Hinata. Suddenly, Minami wanted to challenge her to a familiar game. But the result was already obvious, because Minami was always the winner in this game. Contrary to anger, Hinata felt it was something normal. She even felt happy, because Minami always worked harder than anyone else. She always carried positivity within herself, and Minami was the bright spot of the whole team. This was the first time for Hinata that she had ever seen such a junior. Hinata sincerely congratulated Minami on her success. At that moment, Minami also remembered the memory. When the two of them first met, after a few words of introduction, they officially faced each other. But Minami was the one who won. Since then, the two had become closer. When Minami was at home, she diligently practiced sports to have good health in preparation for the competition. At that time, Arata saw it, so he wanted to become Minami's coach. His purpose was to help her. Unexpectedly, Arata also found out that Minami was injured. It turned out that the house staff had revealed it to him. But Minami kept denying it because she was afraid it would make everyone worry. However, Arata thought, right now, Minami really needed someone by her side, and being her coach was just an excuse for Arata. So after that, the two of them trained together. But for Minami, this was extremely boring, even though she was injured. Still, Minami was very determined to win. It was not only for herself, but also for someone else as well. Next, it was Arata's turn. He seemed to have quite a hard time with stretching, because Arata rarely did this kind of thing. Suddenly, while Minami was training together with Arata, the two of them had some sensitive physical contact. However, Minami did not pay any attention to it, but Arata became embarrassed because their contact went a bit too far. When the training session ended, Arata accidentally came face to face with Kotono. Recently, she seemed even quieter than before. That made things increasingly awkward between them. Finally, the day of Minami's match arrived. Everyone seemed excited for this match. Because the participant in this competition was Minami, at this moment she stood out with her appearance, making the surrounding audience unable to take their eyes off her. Meanwhile, Minami was thinking about the words of others from the past. Although many of them were unpleasant, they had become Minami's motivation in the present. Fortunately, thanks to Hinata, she was the one who had sparked Minami's passion, and the only way Minami could repay Hinata was by winning this match. In the end, Minami truly won. She successfully brought glory to the team. However, this was only the semi-final. The final match next week was still waiting for them. But on the day of the final, everyone at home could not see Minami anywhere, which made them feel confused and uneasy. A while later, Minami returned home. It turned out she had only gone to the convenience store. However, today Minami did not participate in the match. Her decision shocked everyone, and the most surprised one was Arata. Just the day before, he had seen Minami full of energy, but now Minami was gloomy inside her room. So Arata rushed to Minami's room to ask clearly why she had made such a sudden decision. It turned out the matter was very simple. Minami's captain had discovered that she was injured, so the next day Minami's substitute teammate would compete, while Minami had no choice but to accept cheering from the sidelines, because she knew there was still a long road ahead, and she would have many more chances to win. But what was important to her right now was that she needed to rest to regain her health. Unexpectedly, Cheyenne also found out about Minami's injury. This morning in the garden, Cheyenne accidentally discovered Minami crying behind the house. Even though Minami looked as if she was not thinking too much, But more than anyone else, she noticed her surroundings more than anyone. Minami always tried to act cheerful, so that others would not feel concerned. But in the end, the one most hurt was Minami herself. After Arata understood everything, he and the others encouraged Minami's spirit. In fact, it was Arata who placed his full trust in her. At that moment, Minami recalled what happened a few days ago. She was not allowed by the coach to participate in the match because he knew Minami was injured. But Minami immediately refused. She was very determined about this tournament because Minami knew that after the competition, Hinata would officially give up the dream of her life. So Minami could not accept such a thing. But Hinata held her in her arms to comfort her. However, everything would still go on that way. Meanwhile, Arata became unusual. He wanted to see Minami's determination, so Arata agreed that Minami would continue competing. But Minami had to promise that if she felt in danger, she must quit immediately. However, the match was already about to begin. Suddenly, everyone saw a bicycle by the roadside, so Arata decided to use it to go with Minami to the match. No one expected Arata to try that hard. Even Minami was surprised about it. However, Arata was too out of breath to reply, because he tried to pedal as fast as he could. So Minami could make it to the competition on time. Luckily, she arrived just in time. Suddenly, Arata knelt down before the coach. He begged for Minami to be allowed to play. For Minami, this match was extremely important. It was like her future itself. Even Hinata also persuaded the coach. Finally, Minami was allowed to participate. For everyone's sake, she was now more determined than ever. Unexpectedly, her whole family also showed up to cheer for her. That gave her even more confidence, and the highest fighting spirit in the match. As expected, Minami did not let anyone down. She returned beautiful shots one after another. However, the result was not what Minami had hoped for, which made her lose her spirit. But Hinata was the opposite. She bowed her head to thank Minami. Hinata was truly grateful to Minami, because it was Minami who passed on the motivation to her. Even in the club, Minami was always the one who tried to make the whole team happy, and she had a rare determination. Even though Minami's team lost today, this did not affect her very much. Thanks to Minami's willpower, they were able to pursue their passion together with her. Unexpectedly, that made Minami burst into tears non-stop. A while later, Minami sat absent-mindedly by herself. Seeing that, Arata went over to her. But only after some time did Minami finally notice him. Perhaps at that moment her head was filled with many tangled thoughts. Indeed, Minami felt guilty, because earlier she had been so determined to win. But the result was not what she had expected, which left Minami a bit disappointed inside. She even started to hate herself. However, Arata had been very quiet the whole time. He only listened to what Minami said. Perhaps that was the best way of comforting her for Arata. And then he suddenly pulled Minami into his arms. That moment made Minami feel a bit flustered, because of Arata's strange action at that time. But right after that, Minami burst into heavy sobs. Perhaps now she no longer needed to pretend. Because Minami always forced herself through hardships. She always tried to appear positive in front of others, but she forgot about herself. After that, Minami returned home even while she was bathing. She still thought about Arata. Later, Minami met other family members. At that moment, Oka was having a small argument with Arata, because she could not accept Minami's result from the other day. But for Arata, he only cared about Minami's feelings. Whether Minami regretted it or not, that was all. As for the result, Arata did not care. Indeed, that was the case, because Minami did not care about the result. She thought the most important thing was the valuable experience. And personally, Minami felt quite satisfied with it. After that, Oka refused to lose to Arata. She had to prove that she was the one who was right. Suddenly, Oka accidentally dropped a ball toward Minami. Fortunately, Arata quickly used his hand to block it. Unexpectedly, Minami froze at that moment, because Arata was always the one protecting her. Perhaps Minami thought she might have some feelings for Arata, and from that moment on, Minami seemed shy whenever she faced Arata. As for Oka, she was having a conversation with Kotono. It turned out Oka was curious why Kotono had such thoughts about Arata last time. However, Arata also knew about Oka's situation. She had seen Oka say she liked Arata, and about the time when they played games in the room together. At that time, Arata and Oka both had intimate gestures. Unexpectedly, Kotono had witnessed it with her own eyes, because she had been hiding in the closet. At that moment, Oka was surprised. Then she immediately explained to Kotono. Everything before was just a misunderstanding. And about the time they played games, it was just a small accident. Things were not what Kotono had thought. And then she believed it. because of that. Kotono's mood gradually improved. Many days later, Arata went to Banri's internship place for the first time. However, outsiders like Arata were not allowed in, so the two secretly slipped past the guard to get inside. It turned out Banri had forgotten something there, so she asked Arata to come along. The reason was that Banri was very afraid of ghosts, and this was even a hospital, which made it scarier than usual. In her heart, Banri did not want to intern there at all, but because of personal reasons, she chose this major. However, Banri kept tightly holding Arata's hand as they walked. Unexpectedly, she accidentally touched Arata's sensitive spot, which made Arata's arms and legs go weak non-stop. Luckily, after a while, Banri felt better. Suddenly, Arata covered her mouth and the two of them fell to the floor. It turned out someone was coming toward them, so Arata had to act that way. A moment later, he realized it seemed the two of them had made excessive contact, which left Arata sitting blankly for a long time. After that, Banri went to the room to find the forgotten item. It turned out the item she forgot was a teddy bear. Since Banri had not finished making it, she had to take it home to continue working on it. Unexpectedly, that was Banri's hobby, because when she came here for her internship, Banri saw many children who had to stay in the hospital for a long time. Although some were cheerful and lively, there were also children who looked very lonely. Some of them did not even have parents by their side. So Banri decided to start making small gifts. And tomorrow she had a visit to another hospital. This teddy bear would also be one of those small gifts for the children. Without it, someone might feel very sad. After that, Banri also revealed the reason why she chose this field of study. Since she was a child, Banri had the chance to go with her father to visit her mother in the hospital. But every time they left, Banri noticed that her mother seemed sad. Perhaps her mother felt lonely when left alone, and at those moments, Banri would always burst into tears. Unexpectedly, there were nurses there. They were always ready to talk to and comfort Banri. From then on, the image of nurses remained deeply in Banri's heart. That was also the reason why she chose to work in a hospital. The next morning, Banri was extremely happy when she saw the children playing, each of them holding a cute stuffed bear. They were handmade by Banri herself. It truly meant a lot to her. A few days later, at school, Oka received the results of the mock exam. Her friends thought for sure that Oka would get high scores, since she had always been the top student in the class. However, recently, Oka seemed to have lost focus, so her grades were no longer as outstanding as before. Because of that, Oka's mood today was not good. So on her day off, Oka packed her luggage to go to another city. Perhaps she wanted to go to a very quiet place to relax. But when Arata learned about this, he gradually became worried, because Arata thought that maybe Oka was facing some kind of problem. But she didn't share anything with Arata. However, when it was time to return to school, Oka still hadn't come back. She only texted Banri saying she would stay for one more night, and Oka advised everyone not to worry about her. But that only made Banri even more concerned. In class, the other students were also very worried about Oka because she had never missed school like that before. Although Arata felt the same, he was at a loss too because Arata didn't know what was troubling Oka. Unexpectedly, when night had already fallen, Oka still hadn't returned, making everyone in her family very anxious. Even Seiya was the same, although she had always been calm when facing problems before. Luckily, Banri had installed a tracker on Oka's phone beforehand, so now Banri could know Oka's exact location. Unexpectedly, she was at Mount Fuji, which surprised everyone. People feared that Oka had gone there to commit suicide. Even Seihin noticed that lately, Oka seemed to be troubled by many worries. When night fell, Arata decided to go look for Oka, because he was afraid that Oka might be in danger going there. Even though it was already dark, Arata still decided to go, since he wanted to make it back in time for school the next day. With Banri's help, Arata managed to find Oka's exact location. Unexpectedly, she was on a high mountain. But Arata did not give up because of that. He was determined to climb the mountain to find Oka. Arata didn't expect Oka would go up such a dangerous mountain. This place seemed very difficult to conquer, because the terrain here was quite complex. Meanwhile, everyone at home was waiting for news from Arata. Kotono was so worried that she couldn't sleep. Unexpectedly, Minami felt the same. To everyone's surprise, Arata eventually reached the place. There, he encountered Oka. She herself was very surprised by this. Afterwards, Arata went straight to Oka's room and then he informed the family at home about the situation, so everyone at home felt more at ease. As for Arata, he seemed to start feeling shy after realizing that the two of them would Have to sleep together tonight. Arata started thinking about silly things. At that moment, Oka began changing clothes right there, which only made Arata more and more flustered. Afterwards, the two of them turned off the lights to go to sleep. But Arata still wondered. He didn't know why Oka had come here and skipped school. However, Oka didn't dare to answer Arata. It turned out that their parents had once met at Mount Fuji. At that time, their mother's health had problems, so their father carried her down the mountain. For Oka, that must have been fate, because from being two strangers on the mountain, they eventually became husband and wife, and Oka hoped that she too would encounter something like that in the future. But Arata was shocked by her wish, which made him continue to worry about Oka. The next morning, when Arata woke up, he was extremely surprised because he didn't see Oka anywhere. It turned out Oka had left a note for Arata, saying she would return home first. However, according to Banri's tracker, Oka didn't seem to be going home at all. Perhaps she intentionally wanted to avoid everyone, so Oka chose this way. At this moment, Arata did not intend to stop there. He was determined to find Oka no matter what. On Oka's side, she also had many things weighing on her mind. She was walking unconsciously. Even though the current weather was extremely harsh, Oka ignored everything. She just kept moving forward, even though she herself didn't know where she was going. Unexpectedly, Oka kept going farther and farther away. She might have even gotten lost in this place. Even the signboards had disappeared. At this moment, Oka gradually began to lose her composure. Suddenly, she slipped and fell from a high place. This made Uka's situation gradually become dangerous. The fog here was so dense that Oka couldn't see anything, and then Oka began to fear for her life, because in this remote place there was no one else but her. Meanwhile, Arata returned to the inn but still couldn't find Oka. However, he realized something. Oka had not gone home, because Arata saw that her luggage was still there. Suddenly, Banri became worried, because Oka's phone had lost its location signal. Everyone grew even more anxious. They feared that Oka might be in trouble. And indeed, that was the case. Oka could only sit still in one place for now, because she didn't know where she should go, due to the difficult terrain and the harsh weather at the moment. Oka was extremely frightened. She feared that she might come face to face with death. Suddenly, Urita appeared from above. This made Oka freeze instantly, because she never expected Arata to show up here. However, Arata didn't say anything. He just came closer and wanted to carry Oka on his back. At that moment, the two of them tried to find a way to get out of there. Meanwhile, everyone back home was still worried about them. Konami even canceled his work to return, because everyone was worried about both Oka and Arata. As for Arata, he couldn't understand why she had come here. It turned out that Oka had heard from others. If she brought a keepsake of a deceased loved one to the peak of Mount Fuji, she would surely be able to meet that person again. At that moment, Arata suddenly saw Oka, and he immediately remembered the shocking night of that day. Indeed, Arata could never forget it. It even gave him headaches just thinking about it. However, although Oka was the main character in the story, she didn't know anything about this shocking matter. Oka only thought simply that Arata was acting a little strange for the time being. Arata could only behave as if everything was normal. While he was taking a bath, Shion suddenly walked in. At that moment, Shion confided in his brother. He had found his biological parents, and Konami himself was the one who helped him. After that, Shion grew curious. Would Arata want to meet his biological parents or not? But for Arata at the present, he felt it was no longer necessary. Arata believed that family was not only about blood relations, but also about the bonds that followed. And for Arata right now, he felt that Konami was very important, because the two of them had been around each other for quite a long time. That was why Arata regarded Konami as his real father. Shion felt very happy, because he could discover another side of life. After that, it was time for everyone to have dinner. When it ended, Arata was surprised to be alone with Oka. He felt that Oka had been acting even stranger than usual lately, because every day Oka would come to Arata's room, and she showed an oddly close attitude. Meanwhile, Arata was trying his best to act natural. After that, the two of them went into the steam room together. However, Arata couldn't stand the feeling, so he immediately ran outside. After that, Oka grew curious about Arata's feelings toward Yokoyama. But Arata's feelings at that moment seemed to have changed. He no longer cared about Yokoyama, because Arata thought he himself was not suitable. Unexpectedly, after hearing this, Oka instantly felt joy in her heart. Oka sensed that she was very serious about this matter, because she truly liked Arata. At that moment, Oka remembered when she was little. Back then, she always felt comfortable being around Arata, so Oka thought that ever since that time, she had already secretly liked Arata. As for Arata, he felt that the situation was very dangerous. If they kept being that close just now, suddenly Minami appeared out of nowhere. It turned out she wanted to invite Arata to visit the flower garden. So the two of them went there. After Arata looked around for a while, he realized Minami was very different today. She was even wearing a dress. Because usually Minami exercised a lot, she always wore sportswear. It was rare for Minami to dress in such a gentle and cute style. After that, Arata asked about Minami's injury. Luckily, she was almost fully recovered, and Minami was preparing to start training again. That made Arata very happy. Because finally, Minami was getting the results she deserved. Suddenly, Minami asked Arata about his ideal wife. However, he was very surprised by this question. Even so, Arata didn't know how to answer, because he had never thought about this topic before. After that, Minami quickly revealed that she already had someone she liked. This made Arata very excited about the matter, because this was the first time he had ever heard it from Minami. For in Arata's heart, he had always hoped Minami would be happy. However, Minami still refused to reveal who that person was. On the next day, everyone moved to a new location. It was near the sea. So the Shiunji sisters were very excited. Everyone enjoyed their time there. Suddenly, when Arata saw Oka in a swimsuit, he immediately became shy and blushed. But after Arata saw everyone happily playing around, he suddenly remembered the old days. Back then, they were just like this. Even though their bodies had grown, the hearts of the siblings in the family remained the same. All the troubles from before felt as if they had never happened. Suddenly, Seiha ran into trouble. Her swimsuit seemed to have slipped off. So Arata thought Seiha might be naked. This made Arata feel awkward and flustered. He didn't know how to handle the situation, but Seiha, on the other hand, didn't seem embarrassed or shy at all. Seiha even calmly tried to fix the problem. A moment later, it was Banri's turn to have fun, because her appearance was too striking. Banri caught the attention of a group of men unexpectedly. That made Arata look somewhat displeased. Suddenly, Banri came up to Arata from behind. It turned out she wanted to be carried on his back to the nearby waterfall, and then the two of them played together in the water. During that moment, Banri remembered images of Arata. She recalled that Arata always affirmed he would definitely protect the family, and that he could also protect Banri herself. That made her feel happy inside. Unexpectedly, Kutono was watching them from afar. After that, Kutono decided to go to the convenience store alone. But after a while, Kutono decided to invite Arata to go with her. However, on the way there, neither of them spoke a word, which made the atmosphere extremely silent. But no matter when, Arata still remembered the time he kissed Oka. Honestly, he didn't know what he was thinking at that moment. Just then, Kutono was about to say something, but she suddenly stopped. However, when Arata saw this, he encouraged Kotono to say whatever was on her mind. Suddenly, Kotono burst into tears. Because Arata didn't understand the reason why, he became a little panicked. At that moment, Arata kept trying to figure out the cause, so Kutono later revealed everything. The reason Oka left was all because of Kutono's hurtful words. Kotono believed that she was always a burden to others, and then she slowly apologized to Arata. But Arata at this moment did not blame Kutono at all, because to him she would always be his little sister. Even though Arata didn't know what was going on, he was truly worried about Kutono. Since too many things had happened lately, Kotono might have been having unwise thoughts. However, that was fine as long as she realized that she had made mistakes. And from those mistakes, Kutono could learn and grow. It turned out Kutono had always thought she was the one with the fewest memories of their mother. And at times, Kutono also rarely talked with their father. As she grew up, she always felt inferior to her sisters, because all of them were beautiful and smart, in complete contrast to Kotono, so she had always felt ashamed since then. Kotono felt as if she stood on the edge of her family. Yet, in a certain moment in the past, it was Arata who put Kotono first. He managed to save Kotono after she had fallen into the water. Perhaps from that moment, Kotono had always wished that she could be by Arata's side for the rest of her life. When night began to fall, everyone went to the church to pray for peace. However, Arata's own problem still hadn't been solved. That made him feel extremely troubled. But even so, Arata did not intend to ignore it. He was determined to ask Oka for a clear answer, because perhaps Arata also had a special feeling for her. Suddenly, Arata ran into Kotono and Minami, and Oka was there as well. Unexpectedly, they all confessed their feelings. Shockingly, each of them had secretly liked Arata for a long time. Perhaps they hadn't been able to accept this truth yet, but things had already turned out that way. No matter what happened, they would always remain a family. But that truth was terrifying for Arata. He froze on the spot when he heard it. Yet among them, none realized. There was still another pair who were true blood siblings. That's the end of today's video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.